Welcome back to the Perfect Storm. Here with the regulars, Justin and Phil. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Kyle.
Want to apologise. We've been facing some technical difficulties, and our show has not been a fresh one each week on the radio.
Hang on. I'm not apologising.
No, I am.
We recorded the show.
I said I want to apologise.
Oh, people are offended. People are up in arms, mate. This is like people are marching the streets all the way to Canberra.
Yeah, people
This is
haven't
not
heard.
happening.
But anyways, technical glitch, and the show hasn't been live there, but it is still live on YouTube, or at least fresh on YouTube when we record one. So if you are desperate, there's actually one comment in the community section on YouTube here. It says that, where did it go?
This is why we've had technical difficulties.
It basically said that it was a man and a wife, and they would race each other to see who could watch the episode first. They actually look forward to it every week. Shocking, hey?
Wow. Yeah, wow. Get a life.
Yeah.
So why do you and your wife do that, Justin?
Yeah.
She wouldn't race me.
Oh, yeah, I can see the comment is from a Wendy. So that's nice. That's nice that somebody likes watching the show.
Yeah, we enjoy doing it, don't we, Phil?
Love it. It's beautiful.
A lot of stuff going on in the world. Let's get into it, Kyle.
Well, let's have a quick look at France.
Francais.
Francais. Now, this is one of those. Australia has a prime minister. America has a president. Doesn't have a prime minister. And then when I went to Finland, they have a prime minister and a president. So that's a little bit mind-bending for an Australian. But the French system is like the Finnish system with a prime minister and a president. Can we start there? Explain that to us.
Oh, don't ask me.
Oh.
The French.
Well, Phil, let's go to Phil. Phil,
Yeah.
Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so what happens in French? I can't even say it, so I don't even know. So there you go. That's it. That's where it ends.
Okay. French. Justin, back to Justin.
We're in light of Bible prophecy here, as we've talked about incessantly here. It's my little hobby horse. We are in a paradigm shift politically, globally, which tells me we're getting close to Jesus' return. Globally, there's a big shift going on from globalism to nationalism, and this is being played out in France. Because the last election, Marine Le Pen is the female version of France's Donald Trump. She's a populist nationalist, very anti-Islamic immigration. That's her main hobby horse. Her party won the majority of the votes. But the president, what's his name, Phil? Macron? Yeah, that's him.
Like that, yep.
The president he's a globalist lefty, putting all the money in Ukraine and wanting to do all these global initiatives. He was able to manufacture a government underneath him. They're the prime minister out of a minority. No one had the majority. They formed a minority government. And the globalists love to try and waste money all around the world except on their own people and tax them, and that's what they've been doing in France. They're in economic trouble. The middle class and the working class has said, no, we're not spending money in Ukraine and everywhere else. And so the Prime Minister has been kicked out of office by his own parliament. His party was a minority party, but his coalition between, and here's a funny thing, Phil, on the scale of left and right, I always thought it was just a ruler, when in reality it's a circle. And the left and the right are starting to join up in this push against globalism. And what was extreme left ends up being really close to extreme right.
So it's more like a quadrant, like a 4-part section.
It's a circle.
I was going to say this. I was going to say this because that was my next question. My next question was, how is it that people will vote in a landslide for say, a globalist, and then come back and in a landslide vote for populist nationalists?
Yeah.
And you think, hey, how do they do that? Do people just change their mind on a whim? Because these two things are they're nearly the bedrock of how you live life. They're your world view.
Unless you don't care. Unless you're not paying attention.
Well, then a lot of people must not care because we're seeing swings in government, and then you got these different parties ruling the thing.
They don't care. And what they care about is how much things cost and how much money they have in their bank and what freedom they have to do things. So all of a sudden, they'll wake up and say, hang on, what's going on here? Look how much fuel is. Look how much price of bread and milk and all the basics. So they're all waking up. And what has happened that's led to this? Two big issues are happening. Immigration. We're a country of immigrants, so we're not against immigration, but globally, immigration is causing massive friction because you're having cultures clash with cultures. And countries with their values are getting overrun by people that don't share their values.
You get a lot of people saying, okay, that's not British. That's not French.
You know about England.
That's not Australian. That's not...
That's right. So that's one thing. But the other thing is there's been a massive shift in wealth away from the middle class to these upper echelons of really wealthy big corporations and their owners. And the average Joe seems to get more in debt and more poor every year. So those two big issues are massive frictions, and they've come together in France big time. And what's happened in the United States with the Donald Trump election, landslide election, which, Phil, we predicted. We, it's a big word.
Big time.
That's what Phil predicted. Yeah,
That's what Phil predicted. And now in France, same factors. England's next, Phil. Let's make another
or
prediction. Canada, Trudeau is on his last bit. He went and met with Trump. Did you hear about his meeting with Trump?
Suggested that he could be the governor of the 51st state of Canada.
Trudeau goes on and meets him at Mar-a-Lago and says, look, if you put these tariffs on, you'll destroy us. And he said, well, why don't you just become the 51st state of the United States? You were married to a Canadian. They'd appreciate that, wouldn't they?
No, they
That's
wouldn't.
funny.
Canadians.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So here's these big factors
Canadians.
rubbing against one another. If you're listening to this show, you care, you're probably informed, but the majority of people don't know this is going on. They just live in their life, minding their own business.
That's right.
And then all of a sudden, hey, that's really expensive. You're trying to stop me sharing what I think online unless I'm a corporation. That's where they're waking up.
And then they go, oh, hang on. Old mate's promising to cancel that. There we go. Oh, tax on tips. Oh, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's right. So I think there is a greater awareness of the issues. Most people live in ignorance, and the old saying, ignorance is bliss.
Yep.
This next one, just to throw it in the mix, Trump has officially defunded the Ukraine war by pressuring Mike Johnson to block deep state, sending an additional $24 billion to Zelensky. How terrible. Why would somebody try and stop giving Ukraine money to fight in Russia?
I tell you what, guys, and here I'm going to go out in the prediction side because I've been doing watching some people, listening to some stuff, reading some stuff about the Ukraine war and why it started. And the involvement of the natural gas resources there, the Burisma that Hunter was just pardoned this week. Hunter Biden got his pardon. You heard
Unbelievable.
The one that would never happen.
Back to 2014, that's really when the war's starting
So
here.
many people said he would not be pardoned.
What Joe Biden said.
And when they were talking about Trump, they were saying no one will be pardoned. Has to be prosecuted. Has to be prosecuted. Has to be prosecuted. And then bang.
I want to put something out there. This is going to come out in the future. It's not going to come out in the wider public yet. Hunter was simply one of the little pawns. He was put on Burisma with another former CIA head, a big-time guy in the CIA. There's a lot of stuff going to get exposed in the next 6 months about what led to the Ukraine war and America's involvement in that. And we don't need to go into the details here.
Proof positive will be this, is if they stop funding Ukraine, then will the war stop?
I think it's definitely going to stop.
So, if you stop funding Ukraine, then Russia will just go, oh, they're not fighting us, so we won't fight them.
I think they'll do a deal. But the Donbass and all these Russian-speaking sections there on the border, they're probably going to stay with Russia. And that culturally, they probably should.
They voted to.
They probably should. But there's a massive resource in Ukraine. This is about money. This whole thing has all been about money. And, okay, don't believe me. It's all right. I can be wrong. Just keep living. But this is going to get exposed once Trump hits January 20 and he's there. I mean, we're about to live through something we've never seen. All this secret. Everything's secret. Secrets are not helpful ultimately. It's going to be exposed and we're going to have some downloads on some info like we've never lived through before, Kyle. Unbelievable stuff. And we will see. I think they should have pardoned Hunter. There you go. Because I actually think he's a fool. He's just been a helpful idiot to do these things. He's a drug addict that doesn't know up from down.
Just a puppet for their game.
If he went to prison, it would destroy. Drug addicts don't go well in prison. I actually think he is not the mastermind of something.
For sure.
There's masterminds, but he's not it. He's not it. And the Bidens are, they've got an interesting history, but there's bigger forces involved in this, and that's going to all come out. It's going to all come out.
The original premise of this show, Justin, remind us what the perfect storm. There's 5 things that are all combining to. Do you remember what those 5 things were?
Yeah, the politics was the big thing, and we've been talking about the election in the US, the French thing. South Korea just went through a crisis this week as well, and it's not over. China's very involved in all that.
Got a screen for that.
There's the politics of the shift between globalism and nationalism. That's probably the biggest thing going on in the world. But right behind that is the economics. The Keynesian, the French really invented this modern Keynesian theory of if you're in doubt, go into debt. Modern economies just go into debt. Don't fix your productivity and don't fix your balance of, we try and not run deficits historically, but now we've all given up. So the economics of it. There's also what follows an economic crash is always conflict and war, and the amount of war that's been going on, and we've just been discussing that now with what's going on in the Middle East. But there's also what's happening in the realm of AI and this massive shift that's happening in the world through this technology now where self-learning computers, how they're going to change society, every level from authors to artists to doctors, everything's going to get changed. And we're living through that right now. All these things are happening at once. And then finally is the spiritual, the supernatural, and its role at the end. They're our 5 big areas.
Yeah, I just wanted to repeat that context for those that were wondering what the perfect storm was about. It's around those 5 areas, and that gives us license to discuss all these weird and wonderful things around the world. Summary of the crazy events in South Korea. The president of South Korea expected an impeachment from the opposition. This is their theory, I guess. And then to prevent that, he declared martial law to ban all political activity. The Korean army came and closed off the parliament to prevent MPs coming in and out. The Korean MPs climbed over the fence and made their way to parliament and breached the blockade. Special forces tried to storm the building to stop the political activity. The parliament was able to vote, and they voted unanimously, 170 to nothing, to lift the martial law and lift all restrictions. The army didn't know what to do first. They decided to abide by the parliament and left. Martial law will remain in place until the president issues a decree to lift it, which I think he did.
It's been lifted now.
They did it within 6 hours, I think.
Yeah.
So
they have punch-ups in the parliament.
Big time.
Is that Korea that does that?
Yeah, well, there's more than one place that does it, but I have seen them in that. They're chucking chairs at each other. They kind of get into it.
It gets wild. What is this a colour revolution of the CIA deep state? Is this just political upheaval in one country over XRP or something? What's going on here?
But my opinions are my own. They're not Faith FM's, okay?
Yes. Usually.
He is pro-American. China, their big neighbour, just above North Korea is China, South Korea. South Korea is a democratic bastion in a pretty turbulent part of the world as it's turning out. They had the Korean War, of course, which was really China against America, and here we still are. China has got very involved in opposition parties in Taiwan. They there's a whole opposition that are pro-China, and the other side's pro-America. Japan, same thing's happening. And China's very much involved behind the scenes. And here's this guy, and he's a bit of a clown. Like, he calls in the special forces because they're going to impeach him. Let the political stuff play out. Don't bring in the soldiers. But the opposition are pro-CCP. And we love the Chinese people. Some of my best friends are Chinese in their heritage and born there. But the Communist Party of China, we're not so excited about. They are very involved in the politics of South Korea with their finances and their backing. And so these are big global powers. It's all working out there. And America would be a bit panicked by this because South Korea is such an important ally for them against China. And so step back from this and just see there's a lot of power play behind the scenes that we don't see and we're not aware of, and we can't be. But trust me, there's a lot of other forces involved in this little fiasco that's gone on.
Reckon China's still lining up to take Taiwan?
Oh, they want to. China's got so many problems economically and with their demographics. Well, we've talked about it before. They've got big issues. I think they're very dangerous.
And now with tariffs.
And look at the quality of the stuff they can now manufacture. Like militarily, they've copied these US drones is the latest thing, and they're really copied them. How they get hold of these American secrets, I don't know, but they're doing it. They're a very dangerous country because they're not elected. They're not accountable to anyone except themselves. And personally, Kyle, if Phil doesn't have any accountability, what's going to happen to Phil? If I don't have any accountability, what's going to happen to me?
I'd say if you didn't have accountability, it'd be dangerous.
It'd be bad.
It'd be dangerous.
It'd be very bad. And so you need accountability. Does Kyle need accountability?
I'd say not as much.
Oh,
he's got accountability.
Yeah.
Definitely not as much.
Doesn't he ever?
Oh,
Mate. So we all need accountability is the point. And unfortunately, China, when you have this, there's 90 million members of the Chinese Communist Party. You know how many Christians there are in China? 300 million. 90 million communist members of the Communist Party. The vast majority, the billion, really don't care. They're just trying to make a living. They're slave labor. They're just trying to make a living. They're not into it. But this 90 million Communist Party members, they run the show and they run it with an iron fist.
That's where their power is. Their power is making stuff in minutes. Like the manufacturer, Australia, America, no one can match the manufacture power of China.
We don't have Commodores anymore.
And Russia, for that matter.
No. Well, Russia's not quite what China is, but I tell you what, the West is in trouble when it comes to manufacturing. And if China goes to war with us, look at this studio sitting around here. Where would this come from? Where would that come from? Where does this come from? It all comes from the same place. We're in big trouble. Remember COVID hit? We couldn't make masks. There's a bloke in Victoria that's got this little sewing machine making masks because you had to import them all. And they said, oh, no, we actually want them now. You can't have them. Drugs, everything you can think of.
Hand sanitizer.
We're in trouble. Hand sanitizer.
Well, America's got a plan for it. What are we doing?
Oh, we don't make our own fuel anymore. We've got that much oil in the ground, that much coal, that much iron ore. We're shutting everything down, and it's going to end badly for us.
The Supreme Court has decided to look into a transgender healthcare case.
Wow.
And what is at stake? So the Supreme Court is considering whether or not a law that is banning gender-affirming care, pitch that in the positive, gender-affirming care, this is positive, for transgender youth maybe this is a discriminatory thing under the Constitution, is what this is the way this article is
Is
leaning.
it Tennessee or is it Kentucky or which state was it that took that this is the law they brought
Tennessee.
in states? Tennessee.
Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming care for minors.
Yeah.
So the state is trying to stop the grooming and brainwashing of minors. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So what's the bottom line? You put it in English.
Okay.
So
So,
people, this has got to do with healthcare.
this has got to puberty blockers for 10-year-olds.
Okay.
So the 10-year-old comes home one day, and says, "Dad, I think I'm a girl."
Yep.
And Dad says, "No, you're not." You know, at least that's how my dad would have rolled. You know, harden up. That's not the world we live in anymore. So
Now Dad goes,
now, guys,
Yeah,
that's
okay.
terrible.
Well, no,
we'll take you to a
you might be.
psychologist. Come to a psychologist. Psychologist is not allowed under federal law to push back on that.
so in other states, when, say, California,
Mm.
Dad actually doesn't say, no, you're not. Dad says, oh, well, maybe.
It doesn't matter
could
what
be.
Dad says. The psychologist at school says, yeah, you must be really a girl. So have some puberty blockers in under your skin here and we'll stop you developing.
And the parents can't stop that.
Well, in some states they can't. Other states they can. Tennessee has said, we're banning this. This is abuse of children.
Yep.
They're too young to know yet.
Yep.
They're too young to know. And folks, we're just describing what's going on. Before you send your hate mail, we're just telling you what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So they're putting in puberty blockers into young people, like 10-year-olds and younger even, and teenagers.
So that the natural process of
Doesn't
puberty
happen.
doesn't happen.
So they don't develop that way. And then they get them into the hospital and the surgeon gets out his scalpel and
Starts.
changes them permanently. And this is before they're 16. You're not allowed in Australia to go into social media now before you're 16. We'll come to that, Kyle. But you can get your sex changed. You can get your genitals cut off.
The
Are
next
you
thing is
joking?
that we're going to look
The
in,
world's
in
mad.
10 years, we're going to look at law case or cases that have come to court saying I was too young to decide.
That's right.
They made me do it, and now I'm suing the.
And now I can never have children.
Yep.
They don't have any sexual sort of experience at all. They can't function sexually like a normal person would. I don't want to go into the graphic details of it here, but it's horrid things they're doing. And these adults who, look, if a bloke in his 40s wants to do what he was going to do, whatever, that's his business. Kids, Tennessee is saying not for children. You're a grown adult. You in your 50s want to go and get cut up and changed.
I'd have to agree with Tennessee.
I do too. Like, have mercy on my soul. Children should not get involved in this. If when they're grown adults, they want to do this, they can pay for it and go and do it themselves, but they've lost their minds. And so this is going to the Supreme Court. They're all outside protesting. It's not going to be decided till the American summer, which is like June for us next year. But they're already protesting and going nuts. And this will be big because if the Supreme Court, and I think it's a conservative Supreme Court, says, no, you can't do this to children, bang, the lawsuits, Phil.
Well, then it's a big movement. And look, I'd say it's a form of abuse. Gone out on a limb and said that form of abuse because
I'm
if
with
you choose if you choose to actually, because you've got to have the child's best interest at heart. And if you don't have their best interest at heart, and that includes for the future, if you say, no, we're not going to allow this, you may identify as a girl or a boy or whatever, and you're 10 years old, but we know that in the future you may not. That your mind, you may change.
Mate, the best thing I ever saw in this.
We're not going to do it.
I agree. And the best thing I ever saw was by a lefty named Bill Maher. And it's on YouTube. You can click on this and watch it called It's All About the Pride. And he said when he was a kid, he wanted to be a pirate. Does that mean he should have got one eye cut out and his leg amputated because he identified that way? He said, kids are kids.
Yeah.
Kids keep changing. They want to be a fireman one day and a princess the next, like whatever. You don't go hacking up their bodies because their bodies will never be normal again.
That's right.
And they'll never function again. So it's going to the Supreme Court. You can already predict how that's going to go in a Trump world. Along for the pride. There you go. You've got it up there. That is 9 minutes of your life. You should watch this guy. Remembering it's crude. I'm not endorsing his language. He's a complete lefty. He's not a conservative. He hates Christians, all of that stuff. And he can say, how ridiculous has our society become that we're doing this to children?
And he's a comedian, so expect a bit of
and I don't endorse his language
sarcasm.
and everything he's saying, but I tell you what, that's 9 minutes of your life. Is it 9 minutes, Kyle?
It is 9 minutes, 21 seconds.
You actually should watch because he shows how absurd the level of this has become, and you can see there's a swing back against it.
Yep.
Yes. It's quite shocking. what's
Shocking, disgusting, in fact.
And this is one of the things that actually turned Elon Musk away from the left.
You hear him talk, he sounds like his son died. His son didn't die. His son transitioned from a male to a female. And Elon says,
I lost my son that day.
my rest of my life, I'm devoted to destroying woke culture. The awake people that want to change their genders and everything. He has now, and he's done what he said. He's dedicated his life now to destroying this culture and how, because he saw what it did to his own boy.
Politically, what's the big beast that's driving this?
Social media?
No, step
Good-
back.
good
Good question.
segue, Phil.
See, Phil's on this. Phil's on this. But if you step back, you're globalists who get rid of borders, get rid of economies, one big global economy. They get rid of gender. Gender is a social construct. The philosophy of this is that somehow it's not your biology, it's not your Y and X chromosomes, which science always told us. These atheistic scientists knew all about it. Now it's a social construct, and it's all this terrible Western Christianity and these terrible God-fearing people that actually believe in black and white realities. We want to wipe everything out because it's all oppressive.
Middle white American terrorists.
What a load of rot, mate. I can't believe this. What a load of rot. That's what's driving it, in my opinion.
And I think the social media push, well, the indoctrination of the minds through the mass formation psychosis
Yeah.
through social media.
It starts in university, but university, remember the book Pilgrim's Progress? He actually has in Pilgrim's Progress, John Bunyan, 400 years ago, whenever it was, he wrote that book, a classic Christian book. The university back then had this river of doubt flowing out of it, and he gets trapped in the dungeon of doubt at the university. In universities, they're teaching gender theory, and that philosophy, which starts at a university, will play out over a decade into the rest of society, and that's what we're now witnessing. And to get ahead of this, you have to get back to the university and the gender studies they're doing and these theories. What is a woman? And all these docos that have come out are a response pushing back on this intellectual theory that starts in the university.
And I guess that would be what's behind Agenda 47, the American Academy. Have you seen this?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
Basically going to start an online university.
They're trying. Charlie Kirk and these guys are actually putting lots of time into the university age students. The young people coming through now are more conservative than anyone else because of a reaction back to the extremes here. And you can see it's going to swing and it'll play out.
Now, Australia has decided that social media is so much to blame for the dysfunction of our youth and media that they're going to ban TikTok and WhatsApp and Instagram for...
We've got an alarm going off here.
Someone's calling me. I'm very popular. For people under 16. And so they've actually got this through the Senate now. Phil's actually bailing on us. See you, Phil.
See you guys.
exactly. This is
I
the first time
understand.
you've ever walked out.
I know.
Talk about a sensitive topic and you have to go.
It's all good.
See you, mate. Senate passes world first social media ban. So if you are not 16 or over, you can't use social media now in Australia, is the plan.
Yep.
And they want KYC, know your customer. They want all
I
these
wish
details.
you could see Phil crawling across the floor.
Oh, we go to a wide shot. We could have got that.
Oh, we missed him.
Missed
Out the door he goes.
Put her straight in your chair, Phil. Sorry for the distraction. But what was interesting about this, Justin, as I was looking into it earlier, there's no actual restrictions on Pornhub. Sorry to say the word, but you just have to click a button to say
Well,
you're
let's just
18
say
there.
Pornography.
But yeah, I need it for social media.
Well, look, there's a couple of theories here that I think I was so against the misinformation bill.
Mm-hmm.
This one I'm not as sort of all head up over.
Mm-hmm.
I am, but I'm not, because let's admit it. Social media is doing incredible damage to young people.
Yep.
And the accounts of, if you go to, have you been to a takeaway place or a restaurant somewhere?
Mm-hmm.
What's everyone doing?
On their phone?
They're all
I'm
sitting at the table together.
I'm on my phone right now telling somebody I can't talk right now.
Yeah, it's an epidemic of dysfunction. That's the cost of it to young people is greater than old fellas like us. Well, you're not an old fella, but I am.
Yeah.
Um,
Thanks for clearing that up.
yeah, sorry about that. You're nearly there. I just think, in one sense, I like the fact that we could push back on young people living on their phones.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they should even have a phone. I understand for security reasons and anxiety that we have as parents, we want our kids to have a phone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not helping them. It's not making them smarter. They're not more informed. They're more dysfunctional, and they have a higher rate of mental disorders, if you want to have whatever we want to call that.
Mm-hmm.
That there's unwellness happening in them because of these things.
Is it what is the women documentary where Matt Walsh actually interviews people who have transitioned and they're blaming the influence and the brainwashing of social media and they're wanting to transition back, and
That's right.
it's shocking.
It's horrendous. Now, the other thing that some people have pointed out, I'm over 18, they're working out who you are and what you're doing online. I think they already know if they really want to. So I'm not so convinced on that. They know everything you do in a way that we don't want to know how much they know.
How do you know that?
Well, I watched Edward Snowden's documentary / movie, and that was 20-something years ago. And what they knew then was scary. Imagine what they're doing now. And I know some people that are in military intelligence. They're not allowed to own one. They are not allowed to own one because they can do so much through these. So I'm not sure that the government's able to get more power to look at. They already have all that. And if they don't tell us about it, that doesn't mean they don't do it. I'm not talking about the Australian government necessarily, but we're part of the Five Eyes. We share intelligence with the most powerful nation in the world. So I think it's a good thing that kids under 16 are not allowed to be in this ridiculous bullying environment of social media.
All right. I noticed that with our giveaways. Now, the point of talking about all this is actually to point you to something more, to something better, to some answers to all these problems. With our giveaways, there's actually been 52 study guides go out. And the head office actually rang and they ordered some direct because there's so many of these getting out. They can't get them out fast enough.
That's awesome.
So that's very cool. There's been 19 of the great controversies go out.
Yep.
And all 15 of the next superpowers went out, and we capped it at that. So quite a lot of interest. The whole point of this is to actually study what the Bible says about it, to form your opinions from the Word of God and not from what man says. And so we want to encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about these topics, about how America plays any role in all of this, the subtitle on the Great Controversy is I can't read it from here. It's too small. But
You are an old bloke,
it's
mate.
it's
It's
the
official.
war on something.
Can I make a speech here?
Yes.
Spiel.
Please.
Here's my Bible. I don't know if you're on YouTube, you can see it, but you can see it's marked up. I know that these days I listen to it on my phone too, and I have it on my phone everywhere I go. There's something about having your own Bible that you have marked, and you get to know it in your brain in that space. And you will never know this book as well as if you have one and you have marked it yourself. And I can't explain why that's important. In a digital age, you think, I don't need my own hard copy. I can just, it's all on here. I listen to it on here. I have different versions I listen to on it. It's all great, but there's nothing like actually owning your own Bible. And I love, this is a really expensive Bible from Scotland. It's old-fashioned, an Allen Bible.
You almost had an accent there when you said
Scotland.
Scotland.
Oh, a bonny lad. I really love to have my own Bible, and I don't care which one you have, and to have it marked and to have all the pages marked where you know where the verses are. It will retain it in your mind and you'll remember it. To the viewers at home, if you want to get your own Bible marking guide, you can go and buy your own Bible. Get an expensive one that's not going to fall to bits. When I say expensive, this cost me $180. At the time, that was really expensive. That was 2014.
Better than a $15 one that the pages will fall out in 3
And
months.
I recommend you spend hundreds of dollars on a really good leather Bible that's not bonded leather. It's actual leather. If you do that, this is the most important book you'll ever pick up. And can I spend a couple of $100? Well, if I'm in a Western country and I've got an income, maybe I could. But get a good quality one. You only have to spend about $70 to get a good quality one like this. It's not leather, but it's going to last you a long, long time. I use mine heaps, and so that'll last me my whole life. I won't have to buy another one because these are pretty indestructible. Get a good one. And then get the Bible marking guide 0482 082 876. I'm going to say it for you again. If you need to pull over, write this down 0482 082 876. You text the word study. I wrote the Bible marking guide. I can't claim it in the sense that I begged, borrowed, and stole from everywhere I could, all the things I liked, into that study guide. If you buy a good quality Bible, even if you just get a $70 Bible, you can get good ones sometimes secondhand too. And then mark it, you will be so blessed and spiritually strong. It makes you bulletproof spiritually to have that. So that's my appeal to the people listening and watching today.
It's awesome. And I got up from my chair and I read this. It's the Global War on Freedom. So we'll actually offer that one today too.
That's Storm, but they text the word Storm.
To the exact same number. It is 0482 082 876. Text the word Storm and we'll get that book out to you as well. So that's our appeal. Without the foundation of your Bible and these help guides, it's pretty hard to make sense of where we're going and why. But having that knowledge, for me, I think brings a lot of peace and a lot of certainty, not just in who my Savior is, but why strange things happen in the world sometimes. Sometimes I'm shocked, but I'm not surprised. And that can be your position too if you get into these books. So thank you for your time. If, as normal, if you have some feedback, there's YouTube comment section. There's the phone number. You can use that phone number to text your thoughts and feedback. And I'll eventually find that there as well.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Justin. We'll see you next week, Fridays at 4:30.